At my wedding rehearsal, my sister pulled me aside, leaned in close, and whispered, "You don't know who your real father is, do you?" Then she smiled like she just handed me a party favor and walked back to the table where my fiancé was laughing with her bridesmaids. I just stood there, completely still. My chest got tight. The lights overhead suddenly felt like spotlights. What the hell did she just say to me? My name's Daniel. I'm 42 years old. Divorced once, remarrying now. And tomorrow, I'm supposed to be marrying the love of my life in front of 80 people and God. But now all I can think is, what if my whole life's been built on a lie? My family's from Pittsburgh. Blue-collar Irish Catholic. We weren't fancy growing up, but we had structure. Boundaries. Dad worked in construction. Mom ran the household. My older sister, Laura, was always the smarter one. The sarcastic one. The one who could make a dinner table go silent with a single comment. We weren't close as kids. Too much distance. Too much history I didn't understand back then. Our dad, Greg, was a hard man. Stern voice. Calloused hands. He wasn't abusive, but he wasn't warm either. I used to think that's just how men were built. Cold until broken. But even now, I remember, he never looked at me quite the way he looked at Laura. With her, he was proud. Present. With me? He was more like polite. Civil, there. But distant. I always chalked it up to personality differences. Maybe I didn't turn out the way he wanted. I was bookish. Quiet. Never liked football. Liked music. Writing. That kind of stuff. The wedding rehearsal was at a converted barn, my fiancé's idea. Wood beams, string lights, fake rustic charm. Everyone was happy. Joking. Her cousins were drunk by 5 p.m. My best man made a toast that was 30% heartwarming, 70% inappropriate. And through it all, I was fine. Nervous, but happy. Then Laura pulled me aside while everyone was watching the staff set up dessert trays. She had this glass of rose in her hand and that look she gets when she's about to start some trouble. "You don't know who your real father is, do you?" she said. Just like that. I thought I misheard her. "What the hell are you talking about?" She just shrugged and took a sip. "Nothing. Never mind. Congratulations, by the way. You make a very convincing groom." Then she walked off like she hadn't just taken a crowbar to the foundation of my identity. I found her again outside by the fire pit. She was lighting a cigarette she only smokes when she's pissed. Or about to start something she can't undo. "Laura, what did you mean by that?" She didn't answer right away. Just took a long drag and looked out at the trees. Then she said, "You were always Mom's favorite, you know that? What does that have to do with anything?" She looked at me for a long time. Then finally said, "You ever notice you don't look like Dad? Different hair, different eyes, different everything?" I shook my head. "No. Because I do." "No, Danny, you don't. You look like someone else entirely. Someone Mom knew before she met Dad." I felt the air get sucked out of my lungs. "That's a sick thing to say," I muttered. "Is it?" she asked, tilting her head. "You ever wonder why Dad never came to your band concerts? Why he didn't teach you how to drive even though he taught me? I figured he was just busy. Or disappointed." She blew smoke through her nose and said he wasn't disappointed. He just knew you weren't his. That night, I couldn't sleep. My fiancée Kelly was passed out from wine and dancing. But I lay there staring at the ceiling like a man underwater, holding his breath. I thought back to photos. Dad Greg was tall, broad, blue-eyed, straight hair. Laura looked like him. Strong jaw, same smile. Me? I've got hazel eyes, curl in my hair, shorter frame. People used to say I looked more Mediterranean. Whatever the hell that means. I always assumed it was just recessive genes. Now, I wasn't so sure. Around 2 a.m. I crept downstairs to the guest room where my mom was staying. She was watching TV, some old black and white movie. She looked up and smiled. "Can't sleep?" I sat down at the edge of the bed. My voice came out small. "Mom, I need to ask you something." She blinked. "What's wrong? Did you and Dad ever separate? Even briefly? Before I was born?" She stared at me. Just stared. Then she put down the remote and whispered, "Laura told you." That's when I knew. "Laura told you," my mom whispered as if the room had ears. I nodded slowly. She said, "He's not my real father." "Is that true?" She didn't speak at first. Her hand trembled as she reached for a tissue even though she wasn't crying yet. "I always thought I'd take that secret to my grave," she said. That sentence changed everything. She didn't deny it. She didn't even hesitate. I felt a coldness crawl across my shoulders. "Jesus, Mom, I didn't mean for you to find out. Not like this. Not now." I stood up, pacing. My chest felt like it was filled with stones. "So who is he? Who's my father?" She looked up at me, really looked, and for the first time in my life, I saw guilt written across her face like a scar. His name was Paul. I sat back down, stunned. He was someone I knew before I met Greg, she said softly. We weren't serious. It was complicated. Complicated? I laughed bitterly. You mean he knocked you up? She winced but didn't correct me. It was one time. Paul and we had a moment. I never told Greg. We were already planning the wedding when I found out I was pregnant. So you let him think I was his? She nodded. I thought it was the right thing. You were already ours in every way that mattered. I shook my head. But I wasn't, was I? Not to him. Her lips tightened. Greg knew. Eventually. Maybe not right away, but over time he figured it out. Of course he did. Men like Greg know when something doesn't belong. And I never did. I felt like I'd just been mugged in my own home. My whole identity, my father, my childhood, my blood torn out and swapped behind my back. All those years, I whispered. I thought he was just cold. But it wasn't me. It was you. She nodded again quietly. He stayed for me. For Laura. For the sake of the family. But not for me. Silence. After a long pause, I asked the question I didn't want the answer to. Is he still alive? Paul? Her eyes flicked away. Last I heard, he moved to Florida. Jacksonville, I think. That was 20 years ago. I ran my hands through my hair, heart pounding. I'd gone 42 years thinking I came from one man. Turns out I'm half a stranger. And the worst part? Everyone knew. Greg. Laura. Maybe even some of the extended family. Everyone except me. I didn't sleep that night. I walked around the empty reception hall in the dark. The floral arrangements. The tables. The cake. The chairs lined up like soldiers. All of it felt fake now. Like it was set up for someone else's life. How was I supposed to get married tomorrow with this rattling inside me like broken glass in a box? The next morning, I sat in the car with my best man, Evan, while we waited for the final walkthrough. He knew something was off. You good? He asked, sipping his coffee. I didn't answer. Just stared out the windshield. Then I said, do you think it's possible to live your whole life and not know who you are? He looked over at me. Did Kelly change her mind or something? I laughed. Too hard. Too bitter. No, not her. Then what? I looked at him. Really looked. Then shook my head. Nothing, I said. Let's just get through the day. We made it through the photos. Through the setup. Through the fake smiles and the almost time countdowns. But in the back of my mind, I kept hearing Laura's voice. And my mother's. His name was Paul. That afternoon, I found Laura in the back kitchen of the venue, eating a grape out of the fruit tray like she owned the place. You couldn't let me have this one thing, could you? I said quietly. She didn't look surprised to see me. You deserve to know, she said. Better now than when Dad dies and you find out from a funeral guest. I stared at her. You say that like you did me a favor. She shrugged. Maybe I did. I looked down. My fists clenched. You really hate me that much? She finally met my eyes. No, Danny. I hated the lie. The way Mom protected you. The way you got to be innocent in a family that made me grow up fast. I opened my mouth to respond, but I realized I didn't have an argument. She wasn't wrong. She just picked the worst possible moment to make her point. Back inside, the music started. People took their seats. My fiancé's father gave me a firm handshake. Ready to be a family man? I smiled like a man on autopilot. Born ready. But inside, I felt hollow. How can I build a new life when I don't even know the truth of my old one? Right before I walked down the aisle, Laura cornered me again. No crowd this time. No glass of wine. Just her holding a crumpled envelope with shaking hands. You're marrying a stranger and you don't even know it. I stared at her, stunned. Jesus, Laura. What now? She shoved the envelope into my hand. I wasn't going to say anything. But since we're handing out secrets like party favors this week, open it. I looked down. My name was written on the front in old cursive. And right below that it said, do not open unless I'm gone. My stomach dropped. I recognized the handwriting. It was my dad's. Let me rewind about 3 hours. I was in the groom's suite, tying my tie for the third time, trying not to think about Paul from Jacksonville or the fact that I might have inherited his eyes, his smile, or God knows what else. Trying to pretend I hadn't spent the morning staring at my mother across the breakfast table, both of us silent, sipping coffee like strangers. Then Kelly walked in. Hair curled. Makeup perfect. Dressed in flannel and leggings, holding a Tupperware of homemade cookies because she knew I wouldn't eat anything real before the ceremony. That's who she is, thoughtful to the point of pain. The kind of woman who'll write you notes on napkins and slip them into your lunch. Who organizes every drawer. Who can smell a lie before you speak it? She sat beside me on the edge of the couch. You okay? She asked softly. I nodded. Just nerves. She gave me that look. The one that sees through everything. Daniel. I'm fine, I lied. Because I wasn't about to ruin the happiest day of her life with questions about my DNA. But I wish I had said something then. Because I would have had some control over what came next. Now back to that envelope. I opened it in a side hallway just outside the catering prep room. I could still hear people laughing in the reception hall. Tinkling glasses. Sinatra playing. Inside was a letter, 1 page, folded once. Yellowed. Creased like it had been opened and closed 100 times. It was from my dad, Greg. And it started like this. Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I told your mother I didn't want you to know. But part of me regrets that. The floor disappeared beneath me. You were never mine. Not in blood. Not on paper. But you were mine in every way that counts. I raised you. I taught you. I loved you as best I could, though I know I wasn't great at showing it. I felt the tears start to burn and I hadn't even gotten to the second paragraph. I wanted to tell you. So many times. But every time I looked at you, I thought maybe it's better he doesn't know. Maybe he can grow up without this weight on his back. But the truth is, I didn't know how to love you like a father when I couldn't forget you weren't my son. I stopped reading. That line hit harder than any slap. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be a secret. I just was. That's when I heard my name over the loudspeaker. Daniel, we're ready for you. I was 5 minutes away from walking down the aisle. 5 minutes from becoming a husband again. And now I didn't even know if I could look my bride in the eye without falling apart. I walked out onto the patio to get some air. Laura followed me. You okay? She asked. No, I'm not, I said. She lit a cigarette. I found the letter in Mom's drawer last year. I wasn't going to say anything. I figured if they took it to the grave, maybe it should stay buried. Why didn't you? She shrugged. Because I watched you build your life on a fairy tale. And fairy tales fall harder than truth. That's when Kelly came outside. And she heard the end of that conversation. What fairy tale? She asked, stepping forward. What's going on? I turned. I didn't know what to say. Laura, of course, didn't hesitate. He just found out Greg wasn't his father. Kelly blinked. What? Then her eyes narrowed. Wait, just now. I nodded slowly. At the rehearsal dinner, Laura said something. I confronted Mom. She told me. Kelly stared at me, the color draining from her face. And you didn't tell me, she said. Quietly. Dangerously. You've been sitting on this for 24 hours? I didn't know how. I admitted. I didn't want to ruin the wedding. She backed away. No. You didn't want to be honest. Kelly? No. No speeches. No rationalizing. She turned to Laura. And you? What kind of psychopath drops a bomb like this the day before a wedding? Laura exhaled smoke. The kind that's sick of living in a house built on secrets. Kelly walked off. Not storming. Not crying. Just gone. I stood there, heart in my throat, holding a letter from a man who raised me but never saw me as his. Inside, the music stopped. People murmured. Someone came out to ask if we were ready. I looked at the archway, at the aisle lined with flower petals. And I felt nothing. Just a silence I couldn't step through. The music stopped. Someone turned off the mic. And in that silence, the real ceremony began, the unraveling of everything. Inside, Kelly's mom peeked out through the curtains. Everything okay? I gave a weak nod, but she knew better. Mothers always do. I turned to Laura, holding the letter like it was evidence in a murder trial. Are you happy now? I asked. My voice cracked. She didn't answer at first. Just looked at me with this strange, empty calm. I didn't do this to hurt you, she finally said. I did this because I couldn't sit there tomorrow pretending we all didn't lie to you your entire life. I folded the letter and shoved it in my jacket. You didn't do it for me, Laura. You did it because you wanted someone else to carry your bitterness for once. That one landed. Her mouth tightened. But she didn't deny it. I stepped back inside the venue. All eyes turned to me like I was late to my own execution. Evan, my best man, approached. Man, what's going on? Kelly just walked off. Everyone's whispering. I need 5 minutes, I muttered. You've already had 15. I know. I found Kelly in the bridal suite, sitting in front of the vanity, wiping off her makeup with a tissue that looked like it had been through war. She didn't look at me when I entered. She didn't say a word. I should have told you sooner, I began. But I didn't know what it meant. I still don't. Silence. I found out yesterday. Laura told me at the rehearsal dinner. I thought she was being cruel. But it was true. Mom admitted it. And then this morning she gave me a letter from my dad, Greg. He knew. He just never said it. Kelly finally turned around. Her eyes were red, but her face was dry. Are you still going through with it? She asked. The question hit me harder than I expected. I want to, I said. But I don't know how to promise myself to someone when I don't even know who I am anymore. She stood up slowly, smoothing her dress. Daniel, I love you. But this is not the man I agreed to marry. Not because of who your father is, but because the man I love would have told me. I stepped closer. I didn't lie. You omitted, she cut in. You buried it. And if you'll bury something this big the night before our wedding, what happens when life throws us something worse? I didn't have an answer. Outside the suite, I could hear Evan trying to keep the guests distracted. Someone started making jokes. Bad ones. Nervous ones. The kind people tell when a wedding is circling the drain. Kelly took off her veil. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just like someone removing a piece of themselves. I'm not saying I'm done, she said. But I am saying this isn't happening today. My heart dropped. You want to postpone? I asked. I want to breathe, she replied. And I think you do too. She stepped forward, took my hand, and pressed something into it. It was a Polaroid dot. Us. Laughing. From the first week we moved in together dot. On the back, she'd written, still my favorite story. Then she walked out of the room. Not out of my life dot, but out of the wedding. The guests were told there'd been a change of plans. Kelly and I didn't make a speech dot. There was no dramatic announcement dot. Just music replaced by silence dot. And then, one by one, they left. Later that night, Evan brought me a drink and sat beside me in the empty reception hall. You gonna go find him? He asked. Who? Your real dad. That hit me harder than I expected. I don't know. Maybe. Evan nodded. If it were me, I'd want answers. So would I said. But what if I don't like them? That night, I drove to my mother's house. I didn't knock. I just walked in. She was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes like nothing had happened. Who is he? I asked. She dried her hands. Didn't look at me. Paul Mendez, she said. We met in 1980. I was 20. He was a chef at a restaurant where I worked part-time. It didn't last. But he was kind. And you never told him he had a son? Her voice cracked. He asked once. I told him I'm miscarried. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Why would you do that? Because I chose Greg, she said. And I thought if I let Paul in, I'd lose everything. I stared at her for a long time. Then I walked out the door without saying goodbye. But not before I grabbed the letter from my jacket and Googled Paul Mendez, Jacksonville, Florida. Because if I was going to figure out who I really was, I had to start at the beginning. I didn't expect to find him. Not easily. Not quickly. But there he was, Paul Mendez, age 63, listed as the head chef at a place called Casa de Mariposa, a small Cuban-Mexican fusion joint in Jacksonville. 3 stars on Yelp. Dimly lit website. Open Tuesday through Saturday. I called the restaurant under a fake name, told them I was planning a surprise party. Asked if Paul still worked there. The hostess said, yep. He's usually in by noon. That was all I needed. I took 2 days off work, packed a bag, and made the drive south. 9 hours. No music. Just the letter from Greg on the passenger seat and a growing knot in my gut. I didn't tell Kelly. I didn't tell Evan. And I sure as hell didn't tell my mom. Some things you do alone. When I walked into the restaurant, it was quiet, half the chairs still upside down on tables, the smell of garlic and peppers lingering from the night before. A man in a white chef coat was chopping cilantro behind the counter. Salt and pepper hair. Deep-set eyes. Tan skin. He looked up when I entered. Lunch doesn't start until 11:30, he said with a smile. His voice was warm. And for some reason, it hurt. I stepped closer. My throat tightened. I'm not here to eat. He wiped his hands. Then what can I do for you? I pulled out the letter and set it on the counter. My name is Daniel. Daniel Reyes? I think you might be my father. He stared at the envelope for a long time. Didn't touch it. Didn't speak. Then finally he said, you're not the first one to come looking. That stopped me cold. What? He leaned back, folded his arms. About 15 years ago, some guy showed up. Said his mom told him I was his father. Said she waited until her wedding night to admit it. He had my nose. My temper. But a DNA test said otherwise. I blinked. And what did you do? He shrugged. Gave him a hug. Sent him on his way. It's not the worst thing, you know, being the man people hope is their father. I swallowed hard. Well, I'm not here to hope. I'm here to find out. He studied me for a moment. Who's your mother? I said her name. His expression didn't change. She worked with you at a restaurant in Pittsburgh, back in 1980. Her name was Rebecca. That made him flinch. She told me she miscarried, he said quietly. I believed her. She lied, I said. Silence. Then he reached into the drawer and pulled out a small photo album. Flipped it open. Showed me a faded picture of my mother barely out of her teens, smiling next to him in a red waitress uniform. We were just kids, he murmured. But she was something. I nodded. She still is. We talked for over an hour. About music, cooking, childhood, memories. I learned he'd been married once, no kids. Said he wasn't the parenting type. That he spent most of his life in the kitchen because it was the only place people didn't ask for more than he could give. But as I spoke, he kept staring at my hands. My posture. My eyes. You're a lot like her, he said. But there's something else. Something familiar. Finally, he said, I'll take the test. A week later, I got the results. 99.9% probability. Paul Mendez wasn't just the man who dated my mom for a season. He was my father. And when I called him to tell him, all he said was, I figured. I thought it would feel like closure. It didn't. It felt like opening a door to a house that had been boarded up for decades, only to find it fully furnished, like someone had been waiting. 2 days later, I got a text from Kelly. Hope you're safe. No pressure. Just when you're ready. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed. I found him. She replied. And did he feel like family? I paused. Then I typed. Not yet. But he didn't close the door. That weekend, Paul sent me a photo. It was a picture of the two of us at the restaurant. I didn't even know someone took it. He was smiling. I was mid-sentence. We looked like old friends. He captioned it, it's never too late to cook something new. But just when I thought the storm had passed, I got a call that flipped everything upside down. It was Laura. Her voice was shaking. You need to come to Mom's. Now. What's going on? She collapsed. Ambulance just left. They're saying stroke. By the time I got to the hospital, Mom was already in ICU. Laura met me in the hallway. Her arms were crossed, but her eyes gave her away, red-rimmed, barely holding it together. They said it was a major stroke, she whispered. Left side paralysis. Can't speak yet. She's conscious, but it's bad. I nodded. Didn't trust my voice. She kept asking for you, Laura said. She couldn't talk, but she kept writing Daniel over and over on the bed sheet with her finger. That shattered me. I thought I'd left that anger behind in Jacksonville. But now, standing in this sterile hallway, it came roaring back. Not the kind that wants to scream. The kind that just aches. When I walked into the room, she looked small. Pale. Tubes. Monitors. Machines clicking and humming like a choir of ghosts. Her eyes opened when she saw me. She blinked fast as if trying to cry, but her body wouldn't let her. I pulled a chair beside her bed and sat down. Quiet. Still. You lied, I said gently. You lied for decades. She tried to move her hand, but it trembled uselessly. You let Greg raise me thinking I was his. You let me grow up thinking I didn't measure up. And then, when it all fell apart, you still tried to control the story. Her eyes darted toward the notepad on the tray. I handed it to her. She scrawled with her left hand, clumsy, barely legible. Didn't know how to fix it. I swallowed hard. You could have told the truth. That would have been a start. She scribbled again. Was afraid you'd hate me. I looked at her, this broken, proud, complicated woman. My mother. My liar. My protector. I did, I said. But only for a minute. Her lips trembled. Then she scratched something else. She's a good one. Don't lose her. I didn't need to ask who she meant. That night, I sat in the hospital parking lot with my phone in my hand for over an hour before finally calling Kelly. She answered on the second ring. Hey, she said. Hey, I replied. Can we talk? Where are you? Outside the hospital. My mom had a stroke. Pause. Then, I'm so sorry. Do you need me to come? The question caught me off guard. After everything, she still asked. I don't know what I need, I admitted. But I do know I want to see you. Another pause. Then, I'm home. Come over. I showed up on her porch after midnight. No flowers. No speeches. Just me, hands in my pockets, letter in my coat, picture of Paul in my phone. She opened the door. Wore that same flannel shirt from the rehearsal morning. Her eyes softened when she saw me. I still don't have all the answers, I said. But I'm trying. She stepped aside, letting me in. I don't need you perfect, she said. I just need you honest. Weeks later, after my mom stabilized and started rehab, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside, an envelope, a check, and a note written in tight, practiced script. You're my son. Doesn't matter if it took 42 years to figure that out. If you ever want to learn how to cook ropa vieja, you've got a place here. Paul. The check was for $5,000. I laughed, then cried, then booked a flight to Jacksonville for the next month. Kelly and I didn't rush the new wedding. We didn't need to. Because sometimes when the truth finally comes out, it doesn't burn everything down. Sometimes it clears the way. Epilogue. My mom passed 10 months later. Peacefully. In her sleep. We buried her next to Greg, just like she wanted. At the service, Laura handed me a photo I'd never seen. It was Mom holding me as a baby, standing beside Paul. He had his arm around her. And she was smiling like she hadn't started lying yet. She kept this in her drawer, Laura said. She looked at it every year on your birthday. I didn't know what to say. So I just held the photo and let myself feel it all. Grief, gratitude, and something like peace.